She wasn't dramatic. In the 7 years she'd worked in our home, Elena had never raised her voice or interfered in our personal lives. But that afternoon, as I grabbed my laptop and keys, she stepped into the hallway with a face so pale it looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Please," she whispered, "just don't go home yet." Before I could ask why, my phone buzzed. A photo. My husband, Daniel, standing in our kitchen with another woman. Not just standing, laughing, holding her hand, wearing the smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. The timestamp read 30 seconds ago. I stared at the image, then at Elena. She lowered her eyes, ashamed for delivering a truth that wasn't hers to tell. The house I'd spent 12 years building suddenly felt like it belonged to strangers. I didn't cry. I simply thanked her, turned around, and walked away. That quiet decision changed everything. My name is Claire, and I believed consistency was another form of love. I was the one who remembered birthdays, handled taxes, paid the mortgage on time, and made sure there were fresh flowers in the dining room every Friday because Daniel once said they made the house feel alive. While he built a career in architecture, I quietly built the life that supported it. I owned a financial consulting firm before we married, and after years of careful investing, most of our assets, our home included, were legally mine long before Daniel's name ever appeared on our holiday cards. People assumed I depended on him because he enjoyed being the loudest person in every room. I never corrected them. Being underestimated had become strangely useful. Daniel loved attention. He loved admiration even more. Over time, compliments mattered more to him than commitment. I noticed the late meetings, the secret smiles at his phone, the perfume that wasn't mine lingering on his jackets. Whenever I asked gentle questions, he laughed them away. "You overthink everything." Eventually, I stopped asking. Not because I believed him. Because I had started listening instead. The disrespect never arrived all at once. It came in quiet pieces. Dinner reservations he forgot, vacations he canceled, conversations interrupted by notifications he refused to explain. Then came the little humiliations. He introduced me at parties as the organized one, while praising younger women from his office for being so ambitious. People laughed. I smiled. He never noticed the difference. Even inside our own home, something had changed. Elena avoided looking at me whenever Daniel was around. The gardener once accidentally mentioned seeing unfamiliar cars parked outside while I traveled for work. Daniel quickly answered before anyone asked. "They're clients." No one challenged him, but silence has its own language. One evening I returned earlier than expected. The candles in the dining room were still warm. 2 wine glasses sat drying beside the sink. Daniel claimed he'd eaten alone. I said nothing. That night, I opened a folder on my computer, labeled simply, "Just in case." Elena's warning wasn't the beginning. It was confirmation. Instead of driving home, I parked near the river overlooking the city skyline. I watched the sunset while my phone remained face down beside me. For nearly an hour. Not because I was avoiding reality, because I understood something important. Anger makes people careless. Calm people win. By the time I finally returned, the other woman was gone. Daniel acted surprised to see me. He even kissed my forehead. I smiled back. That was the exact moment my marriage truly ended, not because he cheated, because he believed I would never discover who he really was. He had underestimated the quiet person in the room. Again. The next morning, I called my attorney before I called anyone else. We reviewed every document I'd carefully preserved over 12 years. Property records, investment accounts, business ownership, trust agreements. Everything. Legally, almost everything had a paper trail. And almost every trail led back to me. I hired a forensic accountant, not to punish Daniel, to uncover the truth. The report revealed something unexpected. He hadn't only betrayed our marriage, he'd quietly moved money through accounts I'd never approved, small amounts, just enough that he assumed I'd never notice. He forgot what I did for a living. Numbers always leave footprints. For 6 weeks, I said nothing. I cooked dinner, asked about his day, watched movies beside him. Every smile he mistook for forgiveness bought me another piece of evidence. On our anniversary, Daniel planned an elegant dinner with friends. He loved appearances. Halfway through dessert, a courier entered the restaurant. He politely asked for Daniel. Everyone smiled, assuming it was another business delivery. Daniel opened the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, a financial fraud notice, and a letter from my attorney requesting immediate preservation of all electronic records. He looked at me, confused, almost frightened. I simply lifted my glass. "I finally listened," I said softly. No shouting, no insults, no scene. The silence around the table said everything. For the first time in years, Daniel had no performance left to give. Fallout/consequences. The divorce wasn't quick, but it was fair. Facts don't need dramatic speeches. The forensic audit protected my company. The court returned assets he'd quietly transferred. His reputation suffered, not because I destroyed it, because the truth arrived with documents instead of accusations. Friends who had admired his confidence slowly realized confidence and character weren't the same thing. Elena eventually apologized for waiting so long. I hugged her. "You didn't break my marriage," I told her. "You saved what was left of me." She cried. I didn't. Some endings don't require tears, only clarity. A year later, I sold the house. Not because it held painful memories, because I no longer needed a monument to someone else's deception. I bought a smaller place surrounded by trees. Peace sounds different there. Sometimes it's birds, sometimes it's rain, sometimes it's simply knowing no one is lying in the next room. People often ask whether revenge brought me happiness. It didn't. Justice did. The quiet kind. The kind built with patience instead of rage. Looking back, I realized my housekeeper never told me not to go home because she feared what I would find. She feared what it would cost me to lose the illusion. But illusions are expensive. Truth, however painful, is always cheaper in the end. The day my marriage fell apart wasn't the day I lost everything. It was the day I finally stopped losing myself.